Welcome to the Mike White Podcast, where I, Mike White, share my conversations and book reviews through my journey to learn all that goes on in this amazing world. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
You can't hear it. All right, today on the Mike White Podcast, we have a musician, a music producer, a mechanical engineer, Chris Minotti, also known as Minno. Minno, welcome to the Mike White Podcast.
What up? How we doing?
It's good. You can't hear his song, but we're playing some of his music. You guys gotta check him out on Spotify. And it's EDM, I would say.
Yeah, it's electronic. Electronic dance music, I guess I put it under.
Yeah. So hopefully that works. That's the first time I've played from the phone, but we'll see. We're doing new things on the Mike White Podcast, having musicians on, and it's just a good time. So Chris, when did you start getting into music? Like, were you into instruments growing up? Like reading music, writing music?
Yeah, so I actually started with the clarinet in 5th grade. It was required that everybody had to like be in band or orchestra or something like that. So I just ended up doing it. I was pretty good at it, but I hated it. So I did that for like 2 years. Quit. My teacher was very disappointed in me. I got put in the music tech class, which was like the required class for everybody that like quit band. It was basically like the degenerate class, people that were going nowhere in music. But lucky me, the class only met like once a week, but they covered music production in it. And that's kind of where I got my intro. And I kind of downloaded my program after that and started messing around. So I guess I started like producing in middle school.
So why'd you quit the clarinet?
It was lame.
It was lame?
Yeah.
Did you learn like the classical, like how to read music and all those type of skills? Do you think that like inspired you to get more interested in it, or you just totally...
Yeah, it helped. I mean, like I don't have like a very good background in music theory, but like I mostly go off of like intuition, I guess. But it definitely helped to have that.
Yeah, and you said music producing, it got you into music producing. What kind of stuff did you do in school there? Was it like computer stuff, or
it was on the computer?
Okay.
It was all like at that point, like I mean, we were in like 7th or 8th grade, so it was all like loops. Yeah. Like it was basically just taking like pre-made loops and putting it together. And like I thought that was like the coolest thing. And then you eventually learn more about it, and you learn how to actually write your own music. I think what really drew me to it was the creativity involved in it. Like when you're playing clarinet, you're playing someone else's music. You're just kind of reading from a script, and you're coloring inside the lines. And I kind of like the idea of being able to just create whatever was on my mind and that whole process versus like actually just playing somebody else's stuff.
Yeah, and so luckily your school had like the music programs where you could do that. Did you have that capability at home as well, or was it only like isolated to school?
Oh, it was like all at home. I mean,
okay.
We maybe did music production for like 2 weeks, which was like 2 classes. So I really just got introduced to the idea of it, and then I kind of just picked it up my own.
Is it like what was your software evolution and like your equipment? So you start out with just a computer. Are you just on GarageBand, or
so there was this like random program, Super Duper Music Looper.
Nice.
I don't know if it still exists, but it was like a super basic thing where you literally just looping together pre-made sounds. So I started with that, and then I upgraded to this program called Mixcraft, which I actually still use today. So when I first started using it, when I was in like 8th grade, it was like a pretty basic program, I think geared towards beginners. And over the however many years, they kind of upgraded it a lot. So I never really, it was kind of upgrading as I was getting better. So I never had a need to change.
So that's different than Super Duper Music Looper.
Very different. Yeah, that Mixcraft is like a full DAW with DAW, so like a digital audio workstation. You can hook up external plugins. You could hook up like synthesizers or really anything you need to make or record music. You can do in that program.
When did you know that you were past the looper stage and ready to get more serious about it?
I think I probably messed around with that for like a week,
okay.
And then I knew like I needed something else because it gets boring. You're just looping the same things. It's like a very basic program.
Is it always just like EDM music, or are you listening to like EDM, that type of like the beats when you're in school, or were you messing around with different types of music as well?
So I actually didn't get into EDM until college. Like,
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't big in the U.S. anyway. Like, I feel like until, well, I guess dubstep hit like my senior year of high school and that kind of
Skrillex.
Yeah, like that was like the first introduction to EDM. But then there was like Avicii. I think like like when Avicii rolled through, that was like where I really got into EDM. Like just going to like parties in college and like hearing it kind of just it grew on me, and then I kind of learned to love it.
Yeah. So that's to me, like, I don't know how you can figure out what type of beats you want to do, because it's not like you're writing songs or like words at all for the most part. There's some words, but it's all dependent on the beats and the loops. So how does that process work? Like, how do you figure out, oh, this sounds good and this needs to flow into this new sound, and how do you think of that?
So a lot of it is imitation. You hear sounds from other artists and you try to imitate it or replicate it, borrow things. And I guess the idea is you don't want to like just directly copy other people, but it is useful to kind of practice. Like, oh, if you hear a sound, like, oh, let me try to make something like that. And it's usually not anything I'm going to put out publicly, but it's just like practice. It's like getting the reps in. Okay, how did he make this? Let me try to do that. Maybe it's a sound. Maybe it's like a drum beat, or maybe it's just some like weird effect they did. That is kind of just like how you learn and how you develop the tools you need to actually write this stuff. And then I guess the idea is like once you get good at, so I guess the ultimate goal in producing is you have an idea in your head and you want to get it onto the computer as fast as possible. So I guess the more tools you learn, the more techniques you know, the easier it is to do that.
Yeah. I feel like it would be difficult though to know when to stop, because there's so much editing you can do. And how do you know when this is what I want it to be? And do you ever listen back to songs and think, oh, I wish I would have done this and changed it a little bit?
Yeah, all the time. Especially like in the mixing and mastering phase, I can get like very technical, and you're just listening to a song like over and over and over, like tweaking all these little things, moving the volume up and down. Like, oh, the snare's too loud, the kick's too low. I need to cut out some low end on that synth, and just all these little things, and it can be very tedious. And it's a whole process.
So like your first song you made, how much time did you spend on that before you like said, okay, this is gonna be my first one?
Like under Minno or
under Minno, like
because I was making music before that, but not really putting it out that publicly. Maybe like probably about like 2 weeks.
And has that kind of been consistent, or have you gotten
No, it gets
slower?
longer now, because I guess my expectations are a lot higher now, and I kind of everything I'm putting out, I expect to be at a certain level. I think, there's some songs like, because especially in the beginning, I was making more remixes. So I was remixing other artists, and I guess I was a little more lax on kind of what I would put out, just because, I don't know, it felt less permanent. Like those weren't going on Spotify or anything. It was just like SoundCloud.
Yeah. And was that before you had the name Minno, or you just
No, no, that was Minnow. So like
was Minnow?
I started out making mostly remixes.
And so when did you decide to kind of make that jump and stop from kind of playing around and saying, okay, I want to get more serious about it, and I'm gonna, have my own name, gonna start putting stuff on SoundCloud eventually? Would you always have the goal of playing on Spotify, or what is your like ultimate goal as Minnow?
Yeah, I mean the goal was always to be, to as big of an audience as possible on all the platforms. And I think for me, when I switched over to, I guess, focusing on originals, it was kind of just at a point where I felt like my sound was on point and I was ready for it. Because I wanted my originals to be like good from the start and kind of like the direction I wanted to be going. So I think once I felt like everything lined up there, I kind of just made the switch.
Yeah.
And I still do remixes, just not that often.
Did you use any like learning resources, or is it all based on like sound, or did YouTube help you at all to see how people do things? Or
Oh yeah, I watched a ton of YouTube tutorials. I mean, and there's stuff on YouTube like for anything, for songwriting, producing. Reddit was a big thing because the people in there will just talk about techniques and everything, and there's like a whole community of people, and yeah.
nice.
So
How did you balance your time as a college student? You went to University of Maryland, College
Yeah.
Park, mechanical engineering, so that's a tough program, and you're also getting into music and trying to learn that. How'd you ratio off your time in college?
So I mean, I wasn't actually producing that much music in college. Like when I really started taking it seriously, it was like right after I graduated. So I mean, in college, I was kind of just doing it casually, like maybe, I'll write a song like once a week or something, and it wasn't like a full song. It was just like a half baked idea. It was kind of just for fun. I had no like goals with it.
Yeah.
And then, right after I graduated, there was like a 5-month period where I wasn't working and I didn't have a job yet. So I was basically kind of just treating music as like a full-time job. And that's
Awesome.
kind of when I realized like, oh, this would be cool to do something with, like for a career and long term and all that.
Yeah, and at what point I know your top song has over 1 million streams on Spotify? At what point did you kind of see like, oh, I'm gaining some traction, I'm getting more listeners, and it's not just a SoundCloud station that me in my basement or my room doing this solo?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a gradual progression. Like there was never like one like moment where I kind of had like a huge spike or anything. I mean, I think like the first time like a YouTube channel posted my music, and it got like 5,000 streams or something. This was like before Minnow, and I thought that was like the coolest thing. I was
Yeah.
like, oh wow, like people actually heard my song. And then it was kind of just a gradual progression.
Nice. So the other thing I noticed with your songs is it's not just your beats. You have vocalist as well, and it's not you, which I've never heard you sing. I don't know if you can sing well or not, but have you tried it?
I've sung on one song.
Oh, okay.
It's like heavily distorted, so it's not like you won't even be able to tell it's me. But I mean, I'm a pretty average singer, so I want my songs to be the best they can possibly be. So I usually work with singers.
Yeah. So what's that process like to coordinate with vocalists that you meet online? It seems like.
Yeah. So I primarily use a website called Vocalizer, which it kind of just connects producers and singers all on like the website. So what I'll do is I'll post like an instrumental. Any singer that likes it will basically put a bid on it or whatever, saying they're interested, and then I can kind of go through a list of like 30 of them and like pick one that I like. And I've had like pretty good luck with that. Like usually, I mean, a lot of them aren't the greatest singers, but there's a lot of really talented people on there, so you get lucky where some people will be interested in a song that like I would never even like imagine like working with someone that talented, but on that website you can find people. And I've also reached out on like SoundCloud or Instagram to some singers too. So it depends.
And then you put it all together. You probably like ask for audio from them, mix it all up, produce it, then you share it with them. Do they ever have like qualms with it or kick it back, or have you had to deal with that?
No, well, since they're usually featured on my songs, like I basically have like the final or like pretty close to final instrumental already posted to when they decide to work. So I haven't really had any trouble with that, but I have, I mean, not all collaborations work out. There's been times where I try to make something work with a singer and their ideas just aren't on the same page as me. And, we just go our separate ways and, I find someone else for the song. It happens.
Yeah, definitely.
But there is also a lot of, like it is online, but there's a lot of back and forth, like they'll send an initial idea. Maybe I'll sing something and send an idea back. And it's kind of a collaborative process. I think depending on how good of a songwriter the artist is, like some singers I work with, they'll send me something and the first draft is like perfect. And I'm just like, there's nothing to change here. Like, this is awesome.
And do you ever meet these people, or is it all just like emails, or do you ever call them or meet in person?
It's unfortunately all over email and messaging, and yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, you don't even know what they look like, or
yeah. I mean, I'd love to do like a Zoom call with some of them. Like, it'd be cool to actually meet people I work with. But yeah.
Wow. So do you like, what's your thoughts on DJing? Is that something you want to do, or you practice, or do you have like a setup at your place?
Yeah, I'm thinking of getting into DJing. It seems like it'd be fun. I've done it a little bit before, but not enough. I gotta practice. But I think I'm getting to the point where there's some demand to play live. So that's gonna be one of my focuses this year is like learning to DJ and how am I gonna put together a live set. And there's other ways to do it besides DJing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm gonna kind of explore those as well. And
no, there's definitely a lot of venues in Austin, or it seems like it every. I've been Uber driving a lot and find a new bar every time I go out, it seems like. And but the other thing that comes with that is you got to get your own equipment, I would imagine. So like how much have you built up from your computer to what you have now? Are you pretty much a full up studio?
Yeah, I got everything in my studio. I have a keyboard where I can play stuff on, and that sends it into the computer in the form of MIDI. So I can basically just record notes, then play that in any sound I want on the computer. I got speakers, subwoofer. I got dual monitors. So
Nice.
yeah, I got a nice little setup.
Is that just all from YouTube and seeing like what people recommend to?
Yeah, I've been gradually building on it over the years. It started out with just two small monitors, and it kind of grew from there.
How much, you don't have to answer this, but how much do you think you've invested, like money-wise, in like music producing?
A lot.
A lot?
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
But the thing
Equipment's expensive. Like, speakers can be, like if you want a good sound system, it can be like $2,000 plus,
Yeah.
and stuff adds up.
but you don't necessarily need that, especially to start out, right? Like starting out, you just had your computer, and you can still like make
Yeah,
music.
you can just do a laptop and headphones. I mean, you can get okay headphones for like $100 if you want, and you can mix on that fine.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. And then, I was listening to some of your songs and I got a qualm. So you got a song called Gold, but there's no Bitcoin song. What's going on?
We'll see. Maybe soon to come.
Been listening to too much Peter Schiff.
No, no. Love Bitcoin. Just haven't wrote a song about it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how we met, is at one of the Bitcoin meetups. So I wanted to get your take on your Bitcoin story too. How'd you learn about Bitcoin, and or what piqued your interest?
Yeah. So I guess I got into Bitcoin like 2017. Um, I think I was just at a bar with one of my friends, and like he was like pitching me on like Ethereum or something. I had no idea what it was or anything, and he's like, "Oh, it's the Internet of Money," and I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll buy a little bit."
Yeah.
And then eventually I bought some Bitcoin. Like once I got into like crypto as a whole, bought a bunch of shit coins, got wrecked. Kind of learned my lesson.
So what did you find like the difference between a shitcoin and Bitcoin, or when did you start calling them shitcoins? Because at first they were just crypto.
Uh, so I mean, I feel like the term altcoin was like around like when I started. So I think I started with that, and then I heard the word shitcoin, and I just thought it was funny. So I think I said it kind of like in the beginning because I thought it was funny, and then it became like, oh, these actually are shitcoins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had my like realization that like it's only Bitcoin. Probably like I started to go down that in like 2020, and then probably like 2021 it really started to like set in. When I read the Bitcoin Standard, that was kind of like that. There's that one chapter where like he kind of mentions like that it's only Bitcoin and none of them else. And he explains it. I'm like, what is this? I've never heard this before. But and then I kind of went down the rabbit hole, and yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you kind of have to go down the rabbit hole yourself, because there's so many questions and so many details in that whole field. But like, what would you say to someone if they're asking you just the difference between like an Ethereum versus a Bitcoin?
Right. So I think the biggest thing with Bitcoin and why it has value is because there's only 21 million. It's an alternative to fiat currency where our government prints money to no end, and that's devaluing the currency that's in circulation. So governments are effectively stealing from people by printing fake money and adding it into the system. And so basically to preserve your wealth over time, you're forced to buy assets like stocks, gold, or Bitcoin, just to maintain its value, because the dollar is constantly losing value. So I think where am I going with this?
I think you hit it on the head there, and additionally though, if you had
what was the original question?
It's like the difference between
versus
shitcoin
Ethereum,
versus Bitcoin.
Yeah, so Bitcoin is a fixed monetary policy where it the amount of new Bitcoin issued into existence decreases every 4 years with the halvening, and the most Bitcoin there'll ever be, because it's programmed and it can't be changed, is 21 million. So you basically have a fixed supply long term for the asset. So it guarantees that your money will not be devalued beyond the 21 million. And Ethereum and other altcoins, shitcoins, whatever you want to call them, some of them have fixed monetary policies, but they, like the way they were introduced into the world was they had a company behind them who took a stash of it, kept it for themselves, and then they put it out to the public, and then they marketed it. So they're not really decentralized because you have companies behind them.
Yeah, CEOs.
Yeah.
They're fixed, but
yeah,
it could very easily
like
change.
Ethereum, I think had like a maybe 65% pre-mine, which is like an insane amount.
Yeah. And they have the Ethereum Foundation, right? That kind of like is the controlling body.
Yeah. So sure, it's like you can look at Ethereum and say, okay, like I guess Ethereum maxis love to say that like the supply of Ethereum is like decreasing, so it's better than Bitcoin. It's like, well, okay, well, right now it is, but what about in 5 years? What about in 10 years? What about in 20 years? I mean, it's basically standard in Ethereum to fork and to update the protocol, and the monetary policy is constantly changing. So there's no guarantee into the future that their monetary policy will be good or that it'll maintain any value.
Sounds a lot like the dollar to me.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's the dollar, except right now their monetary policy is good, but
Yeah. There's no guarantee.
No guarantee in the
yeah,
future.
we had the gold standard for the longest time, and then all of a sudden they
Yep.
just banned gold, and
Yep.
just dollar's no longer pegged to anything, and just this, one day,
Yeah.
it just happened super quick. But so what is the story with Bitcoin and that you know of Satoshi Nakamoto, and how that was formed, and why it's different, and why that Bitcoin is the most decentralized out there?
I mean, I honestly think like Bitcoin had such a weird introduction because it was the first of its kind, and I don't think that can be replicated because it was kind of just put out into the world. Like Satoshi sent out the idea to like an email list of a bunch of like tech, like cryptographers, and I guess a whole bunch of people like that. And then it kind of just slowly grew from zero. And it was like from the beginning, it was open to anybody. Anybody could mine it. I think Satoshi mined the first block, and then some other people started joining in, and it grew from there.
And the fact that they had like mining, because I thought about this the other day. You could have just sent out all 21 million at once, but then someone would have had a huge portion of it. And the way they set up the difficulty adjustment and all that is like so perfect. And I don't think people understand how hard that would be to recreate. They're like, oh, well, I hear a lot of arguments of saying, I'm not against cryptocurrency, but why is Bitcoin going to be the winner? I think it's going to, like you had Yahoo before Google, or it's going to take time before we really know what is the best form of crypto. But the decentralization aspect of it, I don't see how that's going to be matched. Do you have any other arguments you hear a lot? You're talking about like inflation and how Bitcoin's fixed. I hear a lot of people say, well, you need inflation in order for people to be more productive. How are they going to pay? How are we going to get more money in the system if there's no inflation? Or don't we need more money in the system?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's better people to explain that than me. I'm not like an economist, but I know like on the gold standard we had, basically maintained its value for like 100 years or whatever, and there was virtually no inflation then. So
yeah,
I don't.
I'm saying Bitcoin I think is going to be deflationary, but which is fine in the fact that it's digital and you can divide it, whereas gold you can't easily divide it. Coins, like you're having to, if you're actually carrying them around, which inherently gold is going to lend itself to some sort of fiat paper currency because it's just so much of a hassle to actually carry and transact in gold, where that's another benefit of Bitcoin is it's super easy. I don't know if people have tried transacting in Bitcoin, but if not, you could download wallets on your phone. Like it's not necessarily the most decentralized way, or I'd ask people to go down their own research and make sure they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But like, even if you don't, like if you just get on Cash App right now, you could use Bitcoin. So it's so much easier. And gold, you're inflating, but you're with productivity increase. And I think it's just kind of happenstance of that. It kind of matches over time, and that prices were somewhat stable. But if you had a fixed supply, you would have to keep dividing up the gold. And so over time, just holding your money, you would gain purchasing power, which it seems like people don't like that because they don't think lending would happen. And that's a whole nother conversation I don't really understand fully.
Yeah. So, like, one thing I want to add to that is inflation is bad for workers. Like, if you're somebody who's at a 9 to 5 job and you're trying to get a raise, like, and inflation right now is like 6-7%. Like, you're already at a disadvantage. Like, if a company comes in and they're saying, "Oh, we're giving you a 4% raise," it's like, well, no, inflation's 7%. We're giving you a 3% pay cut. And so it makes it very hard to negotiate like a good raise. And in on like a Bitcoin standard, in theory, if you're gaining purchasing power and like we're in a deflationary environment, then employers would have to come to you and ask for like a pay cut.
Yeah.
So it almost it gives you better negotiating terms when you don't have inflation.
And it's your money. Like you should, like the whole purpose of money is to like, not the whole purpose, but one of the main purposes is to store value, actually keep value. Inflation is losing value.
Yeah.
And then the way we have it now, I mean, inflation isn't purely the amount of units in the currency, but that's a large factor. That's that. And then the like productivity also goes into that equation, but that the number of units, it's not like it's equally distributed. It's like, oh, it's whoever is closest to the printers are getting the extra units and getting the lending. And so it's totally, I think it's corrupt in that you have to play like favorites and you have to kind of convince the guys by the money printers to lend to you and to add more units to you. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't go to just the average Joe. Like it's totally not equal, which equality I think is silly as a goal, but equal under the law. I think everything should be equal under the law. And the fact that our government is so intertwined with economics, there's no way, and it's so our economic system is part of the law. If we have something like that, it should be equal, which is totally not, which I think the easiest answer is just to get government out of economics. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, I mean, like the fiat system is, it's very political and like where the new money goes. Like, I don't know, like for example, like during the pandemic, if you look at the stimulus checks, everybody was like, "Ooh, I'm getting $1,000 or $1,400 or whatever it was." But if you look at the bill, I think the bill maybe would cost something like $10,000 per person. So it's like, okay, like you're not seeing that tax right away, but you're going to pay that tax and inflation later on. And so it's basically, okay, we're going to take $10,000 from you and give you $1,400. It's like, that's not a good deal. So it's like, where'd all the other money go? And I think at the time, like people like Rand Paul, like I think was just kind of going off on like all the random things that were in that bill and that money went to. So, I mean, it was just a lot of like unproductive things that went to. And the answer is like, who got the money? The people who are politically connected that can, lobby to get their thing in that bill. And, it was basically like a giant like heist. Like they were stealing money from people and pretending that they were giving it to them.
And it's like so short-term thinking because everyone's just thinking of like the next election cycle. So they don't want to be the people in power to where there's like people have hard economic times. And it's just super unfortunate where the policies that the government has in place can affect the people like that so drastically. And that's why I think really the only answer is to get them out of economics. But people think that more, I don't know, I think it's a big clash where I believe in free markets and capitalism, but I do not think we live in capitalism. Like we do not have a free banking system. The banking system is one of the most regulated parts of our whole of the U.S. Like more than teachers, more than any other occupation. Like bankers have so much government oversight, and I think that makes it makes problems even worse. Whereas, because I don't think any central planner knows what people want more than the people themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is just freedom and letting people make decisions as they want with their money, and prosecuting people for fraud. Like if there's fraudulent stuff going on, to put them in jail and go to trial, all that. But everything else that they're doing can be done with just a free banking system. But I don't know if we'll ever see that, but that's why I like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is, if you don't like fractional reserve banking, which I'm not, I know there's a lot of Bitcoiners that think it's like the worst thing ever. I don't care if people want to create a fractional reserve bank, but if someone wants to create a full reserve bank, the government shouldn't go in and stop them, which is what they do, because they have their system they want to keep. They don't want to disincentivize lending, and they have, it's just not letting people be free.
Yeah. And like, I honestly don't understand like I guess they're afraid that if there's like a full reserve, everybody would use it. Like, I don't even know if that's the case. Like if your money's insured,
Yeah.
then there's no incentive. You might as well just take the low interest or whatever it is,
Because
and collect that.
you'd have to pay a fee at like the full reserve bank. The
Yeah.
only way they could sustain themselves is with fees. 'Cause
Yeah.
they're not lending and getting money from loans.
Yeah. But I mean, like if our banks weren't guaranteed by the like FDIC, I think, you know, there would be a pretty good argument that people would probably want to be in a full reserve. But I think as long as there's that backstop, there isn't. Which, I mean, and that in itself is, I mean, I'm not a big fan of having that backstop, because I think it creates a moral hazard. But
Yeah, and again, the government doesn't need, if banks really thought that was a useful purpose, is to have a collected insurance between certain banks, they could create that agreement themselves and guarantee it. But the fact that the government can print money, basically, like the FDIC is limitless. Like it's almost meaningless. Like we saw with Silicon Valley Bank. Technically, that wasn't a bailout, I guess, but if it needed to be, they would. If it was bad enough, I think they would just go and print more money, and we'd feel it with inflation. But I don't know. So that's why I Bitcoin. But bringing it back to music, do you see Bitcoin being beneficial in the music industry going forward, with like your transactions over the internet? Do you see that being successful? Like, I think Bitcoin's cool for online transactions, internet money, because you don't have to create your PayPal account, put your credit card. It's going to expire every so many years, update it, change your address, all that. You just have your Bitcoin address with your Bitcoin or Satoshis in there, and you can just zap it across the world like that, especially with a Lightning network.
yeah.
Do you see that being implemented? And like, that's one thing that shitcoins or altcoins really promoted, is like, oh, now with these smart contracts, it's going to be really good for producers, because royalties, they could connect streams to monetize it and actually get paid more than they normally do, with people just copying their music and not paying the creators. I don't know if you see that going forward, or like.
So I mean, like, so there's platforms like Wavelake, which I put my music on recently, where I guess for those listening that don't know about it, it's like they integrated Bitcoin payments into their platform, so you can easily just tip artists in Bitcoin to, I guess, listen to the song, or you can write a little message and then donate some Bitcoin. So I mean, there's stuff like that. I think Bitcoin will make it easier to monetize like any kind of digital content in the future. Yeah, I mean, I think like the big thing is You know, like I think Bitcoin has a lot bigger things to, I guess, change in the world. I mean, and I'm sure it'll affect every industry.
Yeah. So yeah, we're not giving investment advice or anything, but if people are interested in Bitcoin and they've never heard about it, like what are some key principles to safely like buy, store, and use Bitcoin that you can think of?
Yeah. So I guess I would honestly probably, I mean, maybe some people would disagree with this. Like I started out on an exchange, and I think that's fine for anybody starting out. I don't know, just go to like Coinbase or the Swan or, I mean,
Rivers Bitcoin only, right?
uh,
I haven't used it.
yeah,
I've
I've never
heard of
used it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you can go on there, just start buying something, hook up your bank account or whatever. I mean, I think the best way to get into it is just start like DCAing. Like if you don't, or so that's dollar cost average. If you, I guess, are unsure about it, you can just start out with like $1 a day if you want it, or $5 a day, and just kind of like dip your feet in. And then really, I think the most valuable thing you can do is learn about it. Because the more you learn about it, the more confident you're going to become in it, and then just go from there. And really, you know, Bitcoin is not a way to get rich quick. It's not a way to become a millionaire overnight. It's really the way it's designed is it's to store the value of the money you have into the future.
Yeah, and most people will start out with exchanges, but then you'll, as you go down that learning journey, like learn how to take control, like no non-custodial risk, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not trusting it. The big thing with Bitcoin is don't trust, verify. So holding your own keys, whether that a hardware wallet's a little bit of an investment, so you probably won't go down that route until you actually want to start holding more Bitcoin. But you can do your software wallets, and then if you're like totally orange pilled and you want to get a lot of Bitcoin, there's multi-sig.
Yeah,
So
but if you're really into it and you have like you're starting to actually invest a good amount, multi-sig is the way to go. Yeah, like Unchained is a great way to do that.
yeah, eliminate any single point of failure, because you see, I'm sure that's what scares a lot of people away from Bitcoin is they hear those stories of the guy that lost his seed phrase and could have had $1 million,
Yeah.
or cuck bucks, and now he's broke. But eliminating those single points of failure and just learning as much as you can about Bitcoin would be the safest way. Nice. Is
Yeah.
there any final thoughts?
So I'd actually like to talk a little bit about like the music industry.
Yeah, man. What you got?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is like, so I hear a lot of artists kind of complain about Spotify and that I guess they don't pay artists a lot, and there's this kind of like a general like people are kind of upset with that because the streaming revenue out there isn't great. I think it's about 0.3 of a cent per stream. So like if you had 1 million streams, it'd be like $3,000 about. And I kind of just wanted to dive into that a little bit. So like I don't agree with that at all. I think Spotify is actually like very generous with how much they pay. So if you look at Spotify in 2022, their revenue as a company was around 12 billion, and they actually lost money. So I think they lost like 660 million or something.
Wow.
So the first thing is they're not a profitable company. And then, okay, so all right, well, how much money do they actually pay to artists? And that number comes out to a little over 8 billion. So they paid around, I think, 70% of all of the revenue to artists.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're not profitable. Like I think that's like, if anything, like if they're, you know, trying to exist long term, like they should probably pay them less because, you know, they're literally losing money right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
yeah,
everyone makes an agreement with Spotify, but
yeah,
I guess they argue that you kind of have to use Spotify because so many people use it. But I still think Spotify is their own platform, and it's your own music. So you guys got to make an agreement. If you don't like their terms, then don't use it. But do you have to pay to get it on Spotify?
Yeah. So there's distributors that you. It's not that much. Like I use DistroKid, and I think I pay maybe like $25 a year.
Okay.
So it's not bad. And then they'll distribute it to Spotify, Apple Music, and really like any other streaming platform. I think there's like a long list. I think there could be like 20 or 30 different places it'll put it out to.
Okay, they do the same thing with the podcast. Then I guess you're not paying specifically Spotify or Apple, but they have that like another company that makes it easy and just shoots it all out there.
Yeah.
So you do that to get your music noticed, but what other like ads? Like, what's your ad technique, or how else do you spread the word for people to listen?
So I started out where I would just like send it to a bunch of YouTube channels. Like that was my strategy. Then I would post it on SoundCloud, and then I would like try to reach out to like bigger artists and get them to like repost it. But I mean, the landscape has changed like a ton since then. Like that was probably back in like 2015. And yeah, now I do everything I basically focus on Spotify. That's like the big thing. Playlists on Spotify. That was a big way. I got like initial traction. I would send it to playlists, and then they would support the song.
So you just like message the playlist owner?
Yeah.
Okay, just like cold DM them pretty much? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, the nice thing about that is it's low cost because it's usually free. Some of them will try to get you to charge, but most of those are kind of scammy. So I tended to stay away from those. But yeah, I mean, like the great thing about that is like my song Glory. The only thing I did to market that was I sent it to one playlist guy, and he added the song. It started getting streams. I think like it started getting like 300 streams a day from it, and then the Spotify algorithms picked it up, and then it was just sailing from there. So,
Jeez.
and now I've been moving over to, I guess, running ads to drive traffic to Spotify, just because it's a little more reliable than playlists because you don't have to rely on other people to support your music. It's better for the Spotify algorithm because all the people that are clicking your ad are already interested in your song. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing now, and the whole playlisting thing has kind of gotten it very saturated, and most playlisters try to charge money now because it kind of became a whole business in itself. And once you monetize stuff like that, it kind of loses its effectiveness a little bit. And especially because like when these playlisters are just adding songs to the playlist of people that are paying, the quality goes down because it's kind of pay to play. It's not like what their taste actually is or what people actually want to listen to. So I think like playlists in general kind of lost a little bit there.
So you're focusing a lot on Spotify. I'm just spitballing here, but have you ever thought about social media now that it's getting so much more popular, even maybe paying a little bit of money for influencers to like use their song in their videos or like trying to...
Yeah, I've thought about that. Like on TikTok, it could make sense. I've thought about doing that on TikTok, but I don't know. Like I hate TikTok and I kind of hate social media in general.
Yeah.
But I mean, people do it. Like there are artists that have run like successful campaigns where they strategically seek out like TikTok influencers and then their song goes viral. But yeah, so it's something to consider, I guess.
Why do you hate social media? I don't know if you want to go into it. You don't have to.
I don't know. It just sucks. Like when do you ever feel good after you like use social media? Like it just if you take a break for a week and like you just realize how like clear your mind is. Like you realize it's like not a positive driving force in the world.
Do you think, like for just information, like Twitter? Like for
Yeah, no,
example?
it's definitely it's not all bad. Like it's clearly it's very good for communication. It's very good for spreading out ideas, but it can the way they're designed to be addictive.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like, but I think it's just like TV, like what TV was back in the day. And you got the kids
Yeah.
that just sat on the couch and just watch TV all day. Is
Mm-hmm.
mind numbing and makes you dumber.
Yeah.
So if you just sit there scrolling, it's terrible. But
Yeah.
it also, I'm kind of pro social media in that I think that's where all the eyes are. And
Yeah.
I kind of blame people more than the companies, but I know I'm kind of on an island there. I think people should. It's a good way to practice self-discipline and like realize, oh yeah, I may have a problem with this, and you might have to put in roadblocks or stuff. But like just like food, like you could nowadays you got food everywhere. You could eat a candy bar every time you went out to the store.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just dollar there, and stuff your face, and you'd be really unhealthy, and you'd probably live shorter. Social media probably does the same thing. Like people get, what's really sad is people get really like, you get depression from it. You get, it leads to a whole bunch of other problems. But I wish people attacked. My thought is people need to attack the root cause, and I think a better sense of life and a more discipline would fix it. But it's probably hate speech.
Yeah, I mean, I think like part of the problem is like TikTok is so focused on short term or like short content, so you're getting like 30-second sound bites, and I think like there are people like learning stuff that way, and it's like that.
Yeah.
That's not a way. Like if you want to learn stuff, you should like read a book or watch like an hour video or a podcast or something. I think long form content is like much healthier to consume than these like 30-second sound bites where you're just bouncing back and forth. Like it's like designed for people on Adderall. Like it's just like boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, next one, and you're just seeing like 80,000 things at once.
So I agree. I do think there's some value in music though there, because at least when I'm on TikTok, I post the pod to TikTok, and I follow Zach Bryan 'cause I like country, and he just films himself playing guitar and playing his music, and it's almost like a concert. Like I don't go to concerts,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the same. You know, you don't have the same experience, but I think it's cool that I get to see that. I'd rather see that than not.
Yeah,
But I don't.
I think it's like in moderation. I don't think it's a bad thing, but like if you're a kid and you're on your phone for like 2-3 hours a day, like on TikTok, that's incredibly unhealthy.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're just on it for like checking your feed for like, I don't know, 10 minutes a day or here and there or whatever, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
What about Chat GPT? Do you ever use that to help you make music, or?
So I've used one of their other products, Dolly, for like art. I've actually done a couple of my like recent like album covers that way.
Nice. See, that's the same thing. Like people think, oh, AI is going to destroy everything, or it might. Like it could, if used incorrectly or with malintent, it could be bad. But there's also like, it's super efficient, and there's really cool things it can do.
Yeah.
I see like Chat GPT AI. It's very similar to social media, but so what program? Like is it made by OpenAI or is it?
Yeah,
totally...
yeah. It's I think it's made by OpenAI.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. I kind of want to do it. It's got to be like for thumbnails and stuff, because I don't like doing graphic design work, and it does help. And if AI can do it, I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty impressive. I mean it's not gonna replace like a really good artist like that. I think there'll always be a demand for, but what it is replacing is the bottom like 80% maybe of artists like that do like digital artwork, because it's probably as good as that.
Do you think the same thing's going to happen to music?
It could. It could. I tend to think in music it will, because like music is so focused on emotions and connecting with people that way that I think the human aspect of it is really important, and I think human taste is like the ultimate like deciding factor of like whether a song is good. And I don't know if a robot can do that, but I think one way it will be used is it'll make like my job easier because I'll be able to automate certain aspects of the production process. Like, I mean, it could look something like maybe they have like a really cool like drum making tool or something where you can just say like, oh, I want a drum beat like this,
Yeah.
and it'll create it. And then it's like, oh, cool. Now I could take this piece of music or this loop, and I can try to make a song with it.
And that's the thing that I don't know if AI can do. It's like the prompt writer, like that needs to be a person. Like only they know exactly what you want.
Yeah.
And that skill is going to be in high demand.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I mean, if you're to go like way into the future, like, I mean, you conceivably could have like AI artists or whatever, which is kind of weird. I probably wouldn't be supporting those artists, but I think the next step with AI is really just like it'll make the production process easier, and you'll be able to kind of use it as a tool to make better music.
Yeah, definitely. It's exciting. I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you, but what is it that drives you? Like, what do you enjoy so much about making music that you keep wanting to do it? Because I don't think it's just for the listeners. I think it seems like you really enjoy it. And can you put that into words, or is it more just like a creativity, like a way to be creative and express what's going on in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. It's expression. It's like you have all these ideas and emotions inside, and you want to put them out to the world somehow. And sometimes the easiest way to do that is music. Like I guess like as an artist, like if I'm doing my job good, I can take an emotion or a feeling that I have, translate it into sound. Someone listens to that, and they should be able to feel that same emotion that I had.
Yeah.
And that's if you're doing it perfectly. And yeah, so I think that's kind of like what music is all about. It's, it's about expressing yourself. It's about taking what's within you and making art out of that.
Do you feel like your environment or like the stuff you do just every day affects that? Like even from moving from Connecticut down to Austin, have you had different like inspirations or different thoughts? And do you value travel? Is that like something you're going to try to do more frequently?
Yeah. I mean, I think your environment and your mood is like, that's totally going to affect the type of music you make. Like for example, if I'm having like a stressful day at work, like there's no chance I'm making music after, like, just because I don't know, my brain is just like shot and I'm not going to be able to relax. Like you really got to be able to kind of just like relax and go with the flow and kind of just give in and let whatever your mind has in it pour out. You got to be in the right state of mind. I think moving to Austin, the biggest change I've seen is kind of just being in a big city where it seems like everybody's like doing stuff. And I think in Connecticut was very traditional in that most of the people you meet are kind of just working a 9-to-5 job. They aren't that creative. They don't really have any aspirations outside of that. And in Austin, it seems like very entrepreneurial. And even just going, like I'll go to a music producer meetup here. And even though I haven't collaborated with any of them, just going there and seeing what everybody's working on it kind of like inspires you. Like you hear something that's really good and you're like, damn, like I gotta up my game. That was awesome. And yeah, so it kind of holds you accountable a little bit when you have people around you doing stuff.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I was just listening to Vinny Tortorich's podcast. I don't know, he's like the health and fitness guy, and they were talking about the Kenyans and how freaking fast they are. And one thing that they're probably, they have super long legs, but also they train in like groups of 40. And so like the fastest guy in the world is training with a group of 40 other people. So they're seeing him every day and trying to catch up with him. And being in that environment and seeing people do things is definitely a motivator. So I think I'm glad you moved down to Austin. I think it's gonna be good for music as a whole.
I think it was a good move. Yeah, I mean, like in running, I ran cross country for like a couple of years in high school, and like I remember like in the summer I was kind of training like by myself, and it just wasn't the same. Like I would improve like so much faster once I actually showed up to practice and like I had people to like push me.
Yeah.
And like, cause I don't know, people, I think as humans we're competitive in nature, and like when you see other people, like you want to do as well or better than them.
Yeah. And I think it's a healthy competition. It's not
Yeah.
like, what's the freaking guy that took out the ice skater's knees? Do you remember that story? Some famous ice skater.
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, but that's not the type of competition like you're talking about. It's you just want to be the best, but that's totally healthy. But and if everyone wants to do that, like, you're just putting your best effort. And
it's just everybody, trying their hardest and inspiring the people around them. And when everybody's inspired, everybody's working harder.
Yeah, love it. Well, is there anything else you wanted to cover on the pod? The first appearance of Minno on the pod. Hopefully we'll keep having you on as you get more and more music out. We can play it.
Yeah, I guess I'll just touch briefly on kind of. So I think the music industry, it went through like over the last 20 years, like a really big rough period with like transitioning to the digital world. And I think it's optimistic to see streaming take off the way it has and like actually kind of bring about revenue and money to artists where they can actually earn money off selling music again. So I mean, I don't know like how familiar people are with like the story of the music industry, but if you go back to 1999 in today's dollars, recorded music revenue, so that could be revenue from record sales, digital downloads, streaming, anything like that. So it wouldn't include concerts or anything. The revenue in the music industry was $23 billion. And if you fast forward to 2015, it went down to about $7 billion. So that's like a 70% decline. And like, that's all because of, things like Napster, the Pirate Bay, even iTunes, just because, people buying music online wasn't bringing in the same kind of money as records, or like physical CDs. So yeah, it took a huge hit, and I think now we're up to, I think in 2022 it was 16 billion.
Nice.
So it more than doubled. So I think it's on its way back to like being healthy again, which is good.
And I would say it's even healthier once it starts getting back up there, is because the smaller artists that you would have never heard back in the day, like if you didn't have a record deal, I don't think you were making much. Maybe at your local bar or something you would play, but you couldn't distribute many CDs just physically.
Yeah.
And now you get on one of these streaming services and people around the world, like you could everyone could listen to you in a week.
Yeah. So it kind of goes both ways. So the barrier to entry is way lower, but so that means you have way more people making music. So it's kind of just like flooded with music, and there's so many talented people out there. So the competition, I think, is like way higher than it was, but it's like you can actually do stuff on your own without a record label, which is like pretty awesome. And like, I don't know, if I was born 30 years before I was, like, I wouldn't even be able to make music. Like, I would need $100,000 in studio equipment just to produce.
Yeah.
And now you just need a laptop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Even like movies, or a lot of them are choosing not to do the in-person orchestras, and they're doing it all from laptops and digital. I hear, like, just to save some money, which
Huh.
I don't know if that's if you like that or not.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, hiring a whole orchestra and having them play, like, that's expensive when you could do it digitally.
So you're talking about like soundtracks?
Yeah, like the scores, like Star Wars or something.
Okay, so they're individually recording each instrument instead of recording them kind of all in the same room.
I think they're using like the digital recordings of, I want this instrument and this note, we're gonna play it, and instead of having an actual person play it live.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Because I mean, I can't complain about that because I literally use that all the time.
Yeah.
Like if you hear, like on some of my songs, you'll hear orchestra sounds, you'll hear strings, violins, cellos, whatever, and I'm not playing that. It's just a virtual instrument. I guess somebody recorded the sound initially, but I guess they just record each note in different like styles of playing it, and then you can kind of just construct like a melody or chords from that all in the virtual instrument. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's more efficient. Like it's kind of just like the car or new technology. Yeah. The people that relied on playing live all the time, like, they'll probably have less business. There's still a place for in-person orchestras and in-person performances, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not, times change, so I think that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely a fan of it because it allows people to use different sounds that they normally wouldn't have access to, and it's super easy, and it sounds like almost as good as a real thing. Like I'm not going to say it's identical. Like I'm sure if you're a guitarist and you hear a virtual guitar, which I use a lot in my music, I'm sure you'll be able to hear the difference. Like if you really listen, but the average person is not going to be able to. I know I can hardly tell the difference. And I think, especially for electronic music, it doesn't really matter that much. Because it's not like the guitars and strings aren't really the focus. So they're usually background things, just kind of like adding to the vibe. But yeah.
Yeah, I think T-Pain opened the floodgates of what's allowed after, being so successful with auto-tune, and
yeah,
you can do whatever. So what do we got coming out next? What do we have to look forward to for Minno?
So I just put a song out yesterday. It's called Help Will Be There Soon with Sophie DeFrench. She's a singer. Yeah, check it out. Hope you guys like it. It's definitely one of my favorite songs. I'm proud of it, and I think this year I'm going to be releasing a lot more singles and leading up to an album eventually later in the year.
Well, you got to come back on when you get that album.
Yeah, definitely.
Recap it, see how it went. But yeah, thanks, Minno, for coming on the podcast. I'm gonna play you out with Help Will Be There Soon, so everyone should go check it out. But here's a short little 30 seconds.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Mike White Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mike White Pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Y'all have a great day.